Thank you, Steve. Thank you, everyone, for joining physically and virtually. I'm Nicolas, and I'm talking about the VMware migration to KVM. It's nice to see it's raised today as a lot of questions. So I'm trying to cover all that in today's talk. We are going to see the migration process from migrating those VMs using BERT B2B and CloudStack to import it into a KVM cluster. So, oh, no images, okay. I'm using a borrowed laptop. Okay, so about me, I'm Nicolas. I work at ShapeBlue as a software engineer. I am a committer and PMC member. Yeah, and in my free time, I enjoy playing sports and gym. So today, we are going to cover the changes in 4.19 regarding the import and export of VMs. That was covered today on the 4.19 new features. We are also seeing the entire process of the migration from VMware to KVM using CloudStack, and what are the requirements and what have we tested. And yeah, it will be available on 4.19, but documentation is not ready yet, and the PR is not merged yet. So it's not, oh, I don't have, oh, okay. That's an issue. The copy didn't get the images I had on the slides. Ouch. Okay, no problem. So basically, I wanted to show how the import and export section looked like before 4.19, but yeah, it didn't get the latest. So mainly regarding that import and export, we have three new additions on 4.19, which are the KVM ingestion, the extension of the VM ingestion to KVM also, which was previously only VMware, and this feature, which I'm talking about today. Oh. Sorry for that.
You need to that to video?
No, maybe let me try this, because there are two files. No, it didn't complete the copy. Should I email it to you?
Export PDF.
Okay.
You've been advised here to try jumping back and forward through the slides, and the images will appear.
Yeah.
If you export it as PDF,
Okay.
we can get it pretty quickly. USB stick? No, AirDrop works just fine.
It doesn't.
Purple and compatibility.
Thanks, Guido. Okay, so those were the images I wanted to show about my family, and yeah, that was simply it. But now the slides have changed also. Somehow it copied a previous version, I don't know. So, okay, now I have the latest. So yeah, from KVM ingestion on 4.19, we will allow importing KVM domains from different KVM hosts, either external or not, or importing the QCOW2 disks from local or shared storage. And the import-export functionality extension to KVM was done as part of the Google Summer of Code project this year by Ayush. So that's we are looking forward to included. And yeah, this is the image. I wanted to show how it looked previously. Maybe some of you are used to this image on the import-export section in CloudStack. It looked like this. So it only listed VMs if you had a VMware environment in your CloudStack zone. And it is looking like this on 4.19. So the main differences are selecting the source hypervisor. And based on the hypervisor, we provide a list of options, the actions ones. So this was a video. Maybe it's not working, no problem. But I can show you later. So when you click on KVM, you get a list of actions. And from the other hypervisor, you get a different set of actions. So what do we want with the VMware migration? To have some instances which are running on some data centers to being able to be converted and used in CloudStack in a KVM environment. So we are doing this via Vert B2B, and there are some considerations that we need to take regarding the KVM hosts in the environment, because the conversion using Vert B2B is delegated to KVM hosts. So it depends on the results, may vary depending on the version, and also on the guest VMs that we want to convert. It's very important, and this will be documented, that depending on which version you use in your hosts, you install some dependencies which are not installed directly when you install Vert B2B. So, for example, NDBKit and Vert.io Win if you want to convert Windows instances. So how the process looks, you can select from which data center you want to import, either existing or external. Existing, it means it's already linked to a CloudStack zone and in your CloudStack environment. And external, it means it's outside. So that's very important that your KVM host that you use for the conversion reaches the source data center. We have introduced an API to list the instances of a given data center, and then we simply select which VM we want to convert, and CloudStack will do it for us. Another very important thing is that we don't work with the source VM itself. We do a clone in the data center first in a crash-consistent way. That is to ensure there are no issues with the source VM. If the migration doesn't go well, we don't touch the source VM. And it's important the state of the VM must be stopped in a grateful way to ensure the file system is not corrupted and the migration can go, the conversion can go well. For the process, we have a new API which delegates the conversion to a KVM host, which we can choose. And we also can choose to which temporary location we want the converted disks. And yeah, we rely on Vert B2B. And that's an example of what the hosts will execute. So we pass a set of parameters with this URL that CloudStack generates. It points to the data center. So the KVM host needs to reach this vCenter. Then the clone name. And it uses a password file that is automatically generated and then it's removed after the conversion is finished. Then the temporary location of where to place the converted disks, the QCOW2 file, and a name. So with those parameters, we delegate the action to Vert B2B. We have introduced the Vert B2B logging into the KVM agents, so you can have a way to see the process actually. It's a long-lasting process, can take some time, but it's good that we have the progress there on the logs. So in the big picture, that's how it works. The API does the clone of the source VM on the source data center, and then we delegate that to the KVM host. We use the temporary location, and from there we move to destination storage pool. And that, that gives a stopped VM that we can deploy as a new CloudStack VM. So there is also a new global setting to play with the timeout. As it is a long-lasting process, the default is, it's some hours, 8 hours. So it's that's to be covered in the default case. But we recommend, based on our testing, that we do a grateful shutdown of the source VMs, especially Windows VMs. And if there are any updates, that we apply them before shutting down the VM. And we also support running VMs only for Linux, not Windows. Even though we clone it, we don't support running Windows VMs. And as a result, you will see a stopped VM in CloudStack with the disks converted already. So then when you start the VM, that creates a new KVM domain. Those are another considerations. And now the demo time, which I have recorded to prevent some of this. That's a good idea. Let's see. Okay. So in this demo, I have two clusters in this zone, a VMware cluster and a KVM cluster, just to show how existing will look like, the existing source functionality. And a mixed environment. So now, one host has Virt B2B installed and the other doesn't, just to show you that you don't need to install the Virt B2B on every host. You can select a few hosts and then do the selection. So that was very fast. When I selected VMware, I had a bunch of actions applied for that. 1 second. Oh. Okay, no problem. There. So this list varies depending on the hypervisor. And now I'm going to use the existing data center, which is linked to this zone that I have. And that will list only the VMs that are managed by CloudStack, so you can convert them to KVM. And on the other side, the external one, which we point the IP address of the vCenter, and then we pass credentials just for CloudStack to log in and do the examine to list the instances. It uses the same UI dialog as the previous functionalities. So now on the vCenter, I want to clone a VM. For the sake of this talk, I didn't wait the entire time. I just pre-recorded how it's looking like. But you get the feeling of how that will be. So first thing, I will try a failing migration, because I can select the host, and I will select which host should do the conversion using Virt B2B. And you can simply select the one that has the binaries, and you don't need to worry about installing it on every host. For this demo, I made it fail, just to show you everything is cleaned up, even if it fails. I will show the vCenter now. We'll see the cloning of the source VM, which was stopped, but we clone it. And the agent logs will tell you clearly that you need to install the binary if you forgot. Okay, so then cloning completes and then tries to do the migration. Yeah, binary not found. Great. And then it deletes the clone simply and leaves the source VM. And the user gets a lovely message that they need to install Virt B2B. Okay. So now on the next one, same one. This would be the proper one. You select which host you want to do the migration, and you also have another optional option to select which temporary location you want to place the converted disks of the VM. It defaults to secondary storage, so I left it like that, but you can select also primary storage, or either local storage if it's supported. Yeah, here tailing the logs to show you how it starts. You then need to select the networks. So that's one thing I want to show. In that part, it depends the number of NIC interfaces source VM has. So for each NIC, you need to pre-select which network you need to connect to. And that's the same process. It's going to start cloning the source VM. And after that, the host will start converting the source VM, the clone VM. There it's finishing, so then it starts. Right, that's the command, similar as to what I show you on the slides. And you can see the process they are running. While it's doing that, you can notice that it's creating an overlay on top of the VM to inspect it, and that takes a lot of time. So before doing the conversion, it's inspected, it boots a virtual machine inside the host, and that takes some time. After that, it copies the disks into the temporary location. You can also see the process. You can filter the agent logs by Virt B2B, and you see now it's inspecting the source, and previously was opening the source. So that's the process. It takes some time, but yeah. And then you see this guestfs. It's used for the inspection. Yeah, and I think I did a quick cheat here, because while that was running, I also had another one imported to show you how it looks. So it's a stopped VM with the volume, and yeah, the NICs matching the API, the network you have set, and it has put the Virt.io drivers for the disk, the converted disks. So when you boot that VM, it will use them. So let me go back to the slides. Oh, not this PDF. Sorry. Okay, that was it. Nothing was wrong because I have pre-recorded. Nice. And yeah, finally some conclusions before sending for you to some questions. So we have introduced an importing tool from VMware to KVM, which, yeah, of course, can be improved. So it's a good start. The goal is to preserve the VM disks and the networking. So far, our solution is a long process. So it requires some time to migrate a VM. It requires installing Virt B2B, but the good thing is you don't need to install it in every host. You can just pick a few hosts and then delegate the action. And yeah, this is very important that the results are not guaranteed, so it may depend on the guest VMs and also on the KVM host version. and also on the Virt B2B version. So we have done tests on those hosts supported that I had here. We had good results. But yeah, of course, we need to check Virt B2B documentation to see which guest VM hosts, which guest VMs OSs are supported by Virt B2B. So yeah, over to you. 2 questions.
Do you have any idea how much bandwidth you need between the VM host and the KVM host during migration?
No, bandwidth.
I don't think that's a huge factor. Yeah, apologies for answering it from instead of Nicolas. Obviously, 10G will be more than enough, but the whole idea is that the process is that the Virtue tool, after it copies the CAMU image, which we can argue is decently fast action, it will actually boot the temporarily VM, especially if it's Linux. It will inject all kind of stuff inside, recompile not the kernel but the init-ramfs, and do awful lot of insane work inside the VM. And then it will repack it to a final QCOW2 and allow you to deploy a VM. And this process of booting a temporary VM and doing all the necessary work inside, injecting VirtIO drivers for this, for that, and all other kind of things, that's actually what's extremely time consuming. Copying the disk is, I would say, probably now just guesstimating 10% of the time, 20% of the time. So even for a 2 gig VM with a 2 gig disk, it will be like two hours, 30 minutes or so. Crazy slow, you can argue, but it's because doing all the appropriate work inside the VM versus you just converting and doing it manually and then booting into rescue mode and playing all kind of stuff. So,
thank you. Andrew, why don't you keep that mic and ask your question?
all right, now I'll ask a question. I'm yet to actually play with this feature. The KVM host, you can optionally choose the cost to execute the conversion. If you don't choose it, does the CloudStack Management Server, let's use the word intelligently, selects the host which actually has Virtue installed?
No, that's a good question. So if you don't select it, it will look up only for the enabled hosts which are running, but it won't check. It won't do a check on the B2B. So that's a risk, yeah. Okay, and just a quick one. Back up, Steve. Just a quick one. Basically, I personally know the answer on this one, but I think that it would be good for people to hear. When you have a failure with specific versions of Linux or Windows, would you say it's a limitation in CloudStack, or is it purely, and it is, actually a failure in the Virtue to support it? Because at the end of the day, there is a support matrix on the Red Hat or other Ubuntu website, which guest and which host operating systems are actually supported to do the work. Yeah, exactly. That's to reinforce on this point what Andrea have said, is that, results may depend firstly on what Virt B2B supports on the guest VM, but also for the same guest operating system of the VM, could be successful results on a KVM host, but not on other of a different distribution. So, that's basically a Virt B2B limitation.
Just a quick question, a couple of questions from the online audience. I think you already answered this. Suresh asked, is it possible to check the host first and then start the migration process? I think you answered that already.
No. That was similar as Andrea's question.
Can we provision the migrated VM in an existing virtual router tier, VPC network?
In an existing, sorry?
Virtual router tier.
You mean on an existing?
I don't know what he means.
Yeah, you can, yes. It depends. The only condition is that, the only difference, is that it can be existing to CloudStack or not. It doesn't matter if it belongs on a VPC or whatever. So the only difference we do is existing into CloudStack or not. If it is on a VPC and existing into CloudStack, it is possible.
Okay, thank you.
You've had your turn. Just 2 small questions. The first one is, I've seen that QCOW2 is a format which is the disk is temporarily converted in. We are using Storepool as primary storage. How is the process from the temporary QCOW file to the real primary storage when we have the temporary VM running, but we want to do it on the actual storage?
Yeah, so far we have only tested NFS, and yeah, that we move it from that temporary location into the selected primary storage, which is NFS. We don't have another support so far.
I would need to migrate it manually at the moment because we are not using NFS basically.
Okay.
The first question, second question was, I've seen that you only support Ubuntu 22. Is
Yes.
it a V2V limitation, or is it?
Yeah, that's based on the results we had. Surprisingly, we had found Ubuntu 22 work better than Ubuntu 20, in which we had the unsuccessful results for the same VMs. So that's why we leave it out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
A short question which follows up on his question. I get it, so we convert the disk twice. Once to temporary location and then to primary location.
No, that's not conversion, that's moving.
Yeah, but you copy it twice. So
yes.
the amount of data you move, if you move a 1 terabyte disk, you're moving 2 terabytes of data.
Yeah.
So that's the amount of time you need to calculate for.
Yeah, that's also in consideration. And that's not considered on the timeout setting, which is somewhere here. So this setting only applies for the first copy. The second one is outside of this process. So that only applies for the virt v2v command.
Okay, any more questions for Nicolas? Sebastian.
Thank you. I have a question regarding the disks and how many disks?
The disks that the VM has. So
okay,
every disk.
and how about different disk controllers?
Yeah, that is handled by the first step on the virt v2v process. So let me show you here. That part, then when we choose to list, here. So you see that on the host, it is this VM is spin up, and as Andrea mentioned, then virt2v is working on that to inspect the VM disks and to set the proper drivers. You correct me if I'm wrong, Andrea. You know better than me that. But so that action is delegated to virt v2v. If you have different controllers, then it will choose a different controller for the converted disks. So.
It's inside the operating system, but what if the source VMware has different mix or different disks with different controllers, type of controllers? PVC has the we simply pass the VM names, and virt v2v examines every VM disk, and from that it gives us the output of the converted disk with the controller that it found suitable for the source controllers.
Thank you. Time for a couple more questions.
Hello. Do you have any suggestions to speed up the conversion of the disks? Any suggestions to speed up the conversion of the virtual machine? More CPU, more...
Well, that's something that we have been discussing, how to improve the timing, because we have noted it takes some time. Especially the first part is the one that takes a lot of time. When it examines every VM disk, and then the copy can be improved by, I think, that with the connection between or also the storage to speed it up. But that's the second part. That's the copy part. From the first part, which is the examination, that is something we still need to work on how to speed it up.
Okay. Anything more from the room for Nicolas? Bobby?
I just wanted to add that it's really...
Hang on. Let's all hear you.
I just wanted to add that it's really a process outsourced to V2V, to read V2V, and it needs to go through certain operations to on the disks to apply and to make it to convert it. It rarely matters the size of the disk, but the actual operations to convert the OS and the everything on the disk. So you can find basically the same time to convert a 2 gigabyte disk and 200 gigabyte disk. So it's it's a limitation of V2V, the speed.
Yeah, that first step is what consumes most of the time. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.